Great question. I think there's a lot of different challenges. For me right now, the one that feels the most obvious is having to wear all the different hats and having to like shift throughout the day. Like
Hmm.
I listened to all these different podcasts, and one of them was like, to make the best use of your time, you really got to like time block and time chunk, and you do
Hmm.
all of your creative work at this time, and you do all your like administrative work at this time, and you do all your sales. Like I don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
Like if a prospect wants to talk and sets up time on my calendar, I'm in sales mode or biz dev mode. If
Hmm.
I have to crank out a presentation or a training that's due in a week, I got to get into that mode, and,
Yeah.
and and I have to constantly shift into these different gears. But it's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that I have the freedom and the luxury and the flexibility to do all those things too. You know,
Yes.
I can decide when and how I do them. So I don't have I could never operate in a mundane structure where every day was the same and this is how you got to
Hmm.
do it. Here's the guardrails and here's the parameters. Like I am more of a creative spirit. So I like that autonomy,
Yeah.
even though it can feel like a lot of responsibility.
On this episode of Brews BizDev, my illustrious guest is Lindsey Zajac of Ahern, Murphy and Associates. And as Lindsey and I have a couple of beers from our good friends over at Community Beer Works, we talk about things like the challenges of growing your business as a solo practitioner or even a micro business, the value of outsourcing some aspects of your growth and your operations to experts who do the things that you can't do outside of your wheelhouse, and the one thing that Lindsey was taught about marketing and growth that turned out to be completely false. Of course, we talk about a lot more than that. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy the episode. And if you do, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Hey, Lindsey, how's it going? Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Yes, how's your week going so far?
This is the highlight of my week for sure.
Right.
It's been a busy one, cranking out some work, a lot of client meetings, and battling a little bit of a head cold. So I was looking forward to this time to kind of chill and drink and talk to you.
Yeah, chill and take a little medicine,
Yeah,
right? Ease,
exactly. Who
ease
needs cold
slowly.
medicine when you got beer?
Yeah, yes, yeah. I mean, in old times, that was what was their, that was the medicine. So
Hot toddies, I believe, is what it was back in the
yes,
day.
yes. Well,
Mhm.
yeah, liquor, cocaine was a popular thing. We've had some medicines through the years.
Totally.
But we'll stick with the beer today. So before we get to the important part, which is the drinking of the
Mhm.
beer, why don't you just go ahead and kind of introduce yourself, elevator pitch style, to our viewers and listeners?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my name is Lindsey Zajac, and I work for a leadership development firm. It was founded in 1998, actually by my father. And I decided to join that company after about 15 years in the HR space. And I found that leadership and development and training and really helping people develop into the best versions of themselves was my calling. It's what I enjoyed doing the most. So now I have an opportunity to work with clients one on one as a certified leadership coach. I also do a lot of workshops or training programs, all tailored to the client's needs depending on what they're looking for. So I get the privilege of working with my father, learning this business, helping clients. It's flexible, it's rewarding, and I really love what I do.
Nice. And that's a perk. That's a nice
That
thing
is a
to have.
perk.
Yes.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
not a job. It's
All right.
it's a career.
Yes,
So
yes,
yeah.
exactly. Cool. Well, then let's see if we can grow into the best people we can be today, with a little bit
Yes,
of help from our friends. So what
I
what
need
what
some help
beer are
too.
you featuring today? And tell us, what had you choose this one?
So with a suggestion from Paul, I went with Let's Go Pills. It's from Community Beer Works. It's a
Mhm.
Pilsner, which is a form of a lager. My beer story has probably evolved from drink whatever you can get your hands on as a teenager to the cheap stuff in college to a quick stint in Ireland studying abroad where all I drank was Smithwick's and Guinness,
Hmm.
to then, you're a little older and you have a little more discretionary income and now you can get snobby and drink the craft beers. But for me, I've never really loved IPAs. They're a little too bitter for me. Once in a while, I'll find one I like. Um, Hefeweizens are great, but I think that lager is kind of that happy medium
Hmm.
in between.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're gonna try this one today.
Nice, nice. And just to keep things mixing it up, because this has been a season of the beers always being almost different beers, I'm going to go with the Powerful Pills,
Ooh,
also by Community Beer Works. It matches my nails, and I've rebranded this entire company to be pink instead of orange. Just kidding. Don't freak out anyone. No, our logo and our colors are orange, but I just did this because it matches my brand. And this is an Imperial Pilsner. And I think we've got here's the part I like about this Pilsner. It's a 7.4 ABV.
whoa, hey now.
Yeah. And I
Mine's
didn't say,
4.2,
yes. Yeah.
but
I wanted you to take it easy, something
I
easier
gotta
to find, easier to get down without getting too loopy. But that puts it, in the kind of the classical IPA range.
it
So
definitely does.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I'll be loose.
Yeah.
I'll be loose by the end of this. But
Nice.
all right, well, let's crack them open.
Are we doing a little virtual cheers? Because we
Yep.
don't want to have bad luck in our lives.
No, no, God.
No. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hmm,
Yeah.
smooth.
Yes. Yes. Yep. And this is nice.
I like it.
Smooth. Not too boozy for being a 7.4.
Oh, this is really good. Goes down easy.
Yeah, I brought it out just for fun because Community Beer Works, I mean, they do a lot of fun things. Pop culture reference, and we can see what the reference is here. Double IPA, and that would be a 8.3. So we'll see.
Um,
We'll see if I work that into the lineup here. If I get through all the way, I'll be on the floor and I'll have to call for help. You'll have to text
what's the
someone.
highest? What's the
Check
highest volume?
check the back office. Paul is down.
We can't get a pulse. What's the highest volume you've ever had in a beer?
Um, I think it was either a 13 something or a 15 something. It was called, which also I enjoy. I got pulled into the marketing because it's called Molotov Cocktail, which is
Ooh,
one of my
yeah.
famous. See, look,
Oh,
here's a Molotov
love
cocktail on my shoulder. So it's always been one of my favorite
when you see it, you got it.
kind
You
of
got it.
images. And I was like, oh, Molotov, like this is probably going to be pretty heavy. And then they had a Molotov Light, which was only like 12 or something like that. But yeah, the 15, it was not good. It was like there's so much alcohol coming through, and you're no longer
It's
having like a very beer experience. You're having
yeah,
like
it's a
oh, this
shot.
is a light liquor, like this is just
This is a malt
alcohol.
beverage.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
definitely like
yeah.
beyond malt. So
I used to love going to like breweries and you get the menu and you can just like look at like 100 things and
mhm,
then you're not really sure what anything is, but you look at the alcohol content and you're like,
mhm.
okay, I've only got about an hour, so I might as well go big. And
Yeah, I better get to
yeah,
it, right? So
yeah.
let me get something with a 7 in front of it.
I got, fours and fives. You're not even really playing the game at that stage. So
Yeah, no, that's it's
that's
your classic.
that's
I
a
mean, if
lunch beer.
you're gonna drink the, what American beer has been forever up until whatever 10, 15 years ago, where it's just that, it's all lagers and pilsners. A lot of them are pilsners, but it's lagers, very light colored, piss water. We used to call them, especially some of them in particular. And at best you're in that 4, maybe the high 4s. And for folks of size like mine, that means you didn't, when you were young, get to the stage you were actually planning to get to. You just got really full, or you had to make sure you didn't eat for
That is
12
true.
hours.
That is true.
So
And
yeah.
you're right. You don't want to drink like necessarily, 9, 10 beers to get a good buzz going.
Yeah, i
You just
don't i don't want that much volume. It's
yeah,
gross. It's not a good feel. So
not a good
yeah,
look.
the more potent it is while still having like a decent taste, now that I'm an adult, it makes sense. And
Yeah.
this is good. And yeah, and then the packaging goes a long way too. So
Hmm. Yeah, I'll have to experiment more with IPAs. I tried an East Coast IPA, which
Yep.
apparently East and West are different.
Hmm.
And it was at Froth Brewery right before 2020.
Yeah. Yeah.
I loved it. And I'm like, I'm not usually an IPA person, but I love the taste of it. I'm like, I could
Hmm.
really get into this. So I think
Yes.
it's kind of like with wine, like some people say, like, I don't like white or I don't like red. Well, you don't really know your palate well enough. You got to sort of try things
Yeah,
and
you got to get a sense
understand
of it.
the differences. Yeah.
And that changes, right? It changes with time. It changes. I
Totally.
mean, there's a reason like different seasons have different, like, emphasis. I mean, IPAs have gotten so insanely big that people are just drinking them all the time, all throughout. But usually like a big thick stout or something, or some kind of a really heavy porter, like that kind of stuff. It's
Okay.
winter beer. It's like meal beer, right? I mean,
Um,
talk about filling up. It's a lot. Like that is not a, hey, it's 80 degrees out in the summer, right? Like, let
yeah,
me chug back one of these.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's like,
I
let me
mean,
drink some molasses. Like, no.
yeah.
And the same time, sometimes in the winter, you need something with a little more body than some kind of a light lager or something like that. You want to feel it. You want to feel it stick to you a little bit. So and Froth makes great shit. I mean,
They do.
they make
They do.
great stuff. They had a Dangerous Brew. I think, who did I have on here? Who then picked a Froth beer, but we went with the sour. It was Carlucci.
Oh, what was that?
We
Okay.
had on, and he picked a liquid lollipop or something it's called. And they make all these different. It was delicious. Now it was so sweet. I mean, the name was spot
Yeah.
on, and like I wouldn't drink more than one of them in a sitting. It's like a lot of sugar, and then because the sour is a lot of lactose, it can kind of
Oh man,
fuck
that would
with
be
your
yeah.
stomach a little bit. But they made a Bags of Money, I think it was called. I think it might have been a triple IPA after we did a networking event there with the Amherst Chamber, our ProNet in particular, that really sent the night into a different place for those of us
Ooh.
who, like those of
That
us
was
who
the
started
point of no return.
partaking. Yeah, it was like, this is incredible. Like, this tastes so, I mean, it wasn't boozy. Now I
Yeah.
had some later, a few weeks later, and I don't know if it was just a remnant in my brain that like was trying to put me off of it. Or if it was boozier than we thought. We had just had a couple before we started with that, right? And so you don't notice how boozy it is, but it's like, this is going down like nothing, and it's like, what is it? And I think that one was a 12 or 13 or something, and it was like, oh, this is. And then a couple of us ended up going on an all-nighter down Hurdle,
Cool,
and
cool.
we
So
took our
it really
networking into the
was.
streets.
It was the beginning of the point of no return. Once
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah. I
that
wanted,
beer.
yeah. This was a couple, it was a while back, so it was all pre-COVID. Everything. I mean, I wouldn't call what we were doing safe, but it was not, it was not contagious. In any
I,
case.
I I distinctly recall a night when I was working at a pretty large company, right before I started working with my dad, and we were up on SU Hill. We were doing a recruiting event for students. We were trying to find like hires to bring on. And afterwards, you've been working all day, you've been interviewing all day, you've been in like your corporate thing, and you just want to kind of let loose. So we were at the hotel bar having some food and drinks, and it was the infamous, I worked with mostly guys, and it was the infamous, hey, let's go grab one drink, let's go out for a drink. And we
Mhm.
went to Vegas, and it's never one drink. And when you're in a college town and you go
Oh,
to like one of the biggest bars on SU's campus, I mean, that infamous one drink when we all waltzed over there turned into, gosh, 3 or 4 in the morning. I mean,
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
I've got like a baby at home. I'm like a grown adult, and we
yeah.
had a blast.
Yes.
We had a great time. But
Then you pay for it.
and we were drinking beers. I don't know what I was drinking, but
Yeah, yeah.
it
After
was
a
some
while,
kind
you
of
lose
it was some
track.
kind of Wednesday night thing, and they were having some special, and
Hmm. Yeah,
uh,
you
yeah, I
can
think
get.
they asked for my ID, and then that was like the beginning of a great night.
Oh
So
yes,
it
I'm
was
like,
so sweet
yeah,
to do that.
cool. Us again. I like
My
that.
day.
Yeah, yeah. No, things can spin out of control, and they're very fun. And then the older you get, the more painful that experience
Oh
is
yeah.
the next day and
Oh yeah.
day after.
I
And it's very interesting because as we record this, what I'll be doing next after I wrap up here and then leave is go to meet down at Masuda Chow's, the same two people that ended up on that were on that adventure that night. And it's been a long time. I mean, the three of us haven't gotten together for obvious reasons in a long time.
sure.
So So yeah, so and even in the messaging for that, it's like, yeah, well, let's do the early, because it's like, hey, let's do, right after work on Main, while we're here, or later on Allen, because that's convenient for me. And it's just like, yeah, let's go with the early one, because I don't want to turn this into an all-nighter.
Yep.
I think, and it's just like, yeah, no, I can't. Like, I
All
got
of
to
them
walk
the
the
best of
dog.
intentions, and we all knew we had to be up and at 'em at like 7 a.m. the next morning,
Yeah.
and it didn't stop us.
No,
And
no, no.
then there was the trek to insomnia cookie, because now we're hungry, we got to eat something, and
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely, after that post froth thing, I'm pretty sure I missed a meeting the next day. There's something like, I think Megan, she had to like come in and like wake me up, very nicely. She did too. Just like, hey, I just know you're usually like out the door long before this, and just in case, just want to let you know. And I'm like, cool, because God knows if I didn't set the alarm, if I blew right through it, who knows at that
yeah.
point. And of course, the key when you're doing that really bingey stuff is you actually kind of want to get sick, like you want to like get it out of you.
You want to get it out of your system, like
Yeah,
you
and
want
I
to show up
didn't.
better.
And so the
Yeah.
one of us who did that like felt great the next day. Like,
Yeah.
I was calling, you okay? Did you miss anything? He's like, no. I'm like, oh, what are you talking about? I'm good. Like, it was a little rough in the morning. He's like, but that's the beauty of having handled that the night before. I'm still carrying it with me. And I mean, I had a big prospect meeting that was a call, thankfully a phone call, L-span or some shit. It was just like, oh my God. And that's the only thing I managed all day, was like getting my stuff ready and like waiting for that. Everyone at the office and everyone else, different company, went out. They're going for lunch. And I'm like, no, I'm skipping it. I found a place where I could lay down on the floor that was below window level and right at the wall. So as the people would walk by in the hallway, nobody
They
could
wouldn't
see that I was
see
in there sleeping on the floor, but I'm just like desperately trying to rest. And I mean, the call was at 2, for fuck's sakes. Like, I mean, I blew out my whole day, and I'm like, wow, I cannot recover anymore like I used to. Like, that is,
sign of old age. How
yeah,
long is it
this needs to
over
be a
anyway?
yearly thing at best, so when you have responsibilities, you got to change that game. But anywho,
Those are the
besides
fun.
drinking,
Those are the fun ones.
like,
Yeah.
so that's all the time we have. Just kidding. Fun stories. Fun
I have
stories.
so many more stories I could
Yeah.
tell you, but
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna let you
Yeah,
lead the
we'll go into biz dev a little bit here. So and then, and in full disclosure, obviously, like, you and I professionally know each other pretty well. Been doing some projects for years. Renown is like the marketing agency that Ahern
yeah.
uses. So we're connected, and I just like to say things out loud, so it's not like, oh, we're just doing this thing and we're pretending that's so.
Yeah.
Some of this I have some insight into what you're going to talk about, and some of this, actually, this next question is really like, I have insight personally because I used to live in this world of consultants, and either solo or very small group, and you might as well be solo even if you're not, right? Like, building things out and doing the work, and then having to sell the work, find out how to market it, do all that fun networking shit, like all the biz dev and all the delivery. And that obviously comes with its challenges, right? So I'm curious, for you, as being in that kind of practitioner, having to do the work yourself role in a very micro-sized business, what is the biggest challenge? What has been kind of like historically? So even pre-COVID, obviously it's its own set of challenges. But pre-COVID, like, what do you say? What do you think is the biggest challenge to consistent business growth when you're kind of a micro-sized practitioner?
Great question. I think there's a lot of different challenges. For me right now, the one that feels the most obvious is having to wear all the different hats and having to like shift throughout the day. Like
Mm-hmm.
I listened to all these different podcasts, and one of them was like, to make the best use of your time, you really got to like time block and time chunk, and you do
Mm-hmm.
all of your creative work at this time, and you do all your like administrative work at this time, and you do all your sales. Like, I don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
Like, if a prospect wants to talk and sets up time on my calendar, I'm in sales mode or biz dev mode. If
Mm-hmm.
I have to crank out a presentation or a training that's due in a week, I got to get into that mode, and
Yeah.
and I have to constantly shift into these different gears. And I think so that can be difficult at times to kind of navigate all of it. I don't have an admin or a virtual assistant or anything like that. So, the invoicing and all that kind of stuff
Hmm.
falls on me too. And sometimes it's just, it can be hard to shift around. Like there's days where I just want to get into research and like creative mode and actually build content or
Hmm.
write blogs. And I can get into that mode and stay in that mode. But then I got to be able to, we have this boot camp that we're offering in the spring. And if I'm not going out there talking about it or
Hmm.
posting or calling people, I'm not going to get, and I'm not going to get enough people,
Yeah.
So it's like that constant shift of what should I be doing today that's going to move the needle on my business. And there's probably 10 different things I could do.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a challenge for sure. I mean, the hats by themselves,
Yeah.
are a challenge, right? Because nobody's actually good at all those different sets of things.
No way, no way. And
You know,
that's the other thing is like you have your comfort zones. I mean,
yeah.
there's things I feel more comfortable doing that I enjoy doing, but I don't always have that luxury. Sometimes I've got to, you might not feel like going to a networking event or doing your elevator pitch, or you might not feel like, doing research for a new
Hmm.
topic that a client wants, but you got to figure it out. So,
Yeah.
I mean, but it's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that I have the freedom and the luxury and the flexibility to do all those things too. You know,
Yes.
I can decide when and how I do them. So I don't have I could never operate in a mundane structure where every day was the same and this is how you got to
Hmm.
do it. Here's the guardrails and here's the parameters. Like I am more of a creative spirit. So I like that autonomy,
Yeah.
even though it can feel like a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. No, I hear you 100%
So,
on, I think, on all those counts. And what is, obviously, so there's no the answer, right? We can listen to all the tips and, and the tricks and like, yeah, the time chunking. I'm a big calendar freak
yeah.
myself, which is nice because it's kind of, it spreads. And now that I affiliate with teams and don't just stay in my little bubble all the time, like then I see like other people's calendars changing over time and there's more tasks and I'm like, all right, that's cool, that's cool. And yeah, like it's not adaptable to the real life everyday business because sometimes the email comes in and there is
Yep.
no like, well, it's not email time yet, like no,
Yeah.
like someone's fucking business
It's
is on
not time for
fire,
me to send you
or
a
the,
proposal yet. Come
yeah,
on.
like, yeah,
You know,
no, I'm not. This isn't time for this. Like, I'm doing free thought association time, and it's just like, no,
I'm
prospect
doing a
wants.
mind map. You need to leave me alone. I
Yes,
can't answer
exactly.
that.
How dare you email me during yoga hour? But there is, yeah, because shit happens that needs immediate attention, and there's stuff that there are priorities, right? There are things we have a lot of commitments, but there's a lot of different priorities, and those change in context, and so you have to respond to it, and it is very different. It's different, like parts of the brain, different strengths for
Totally.
different stuff. It's I think I did a post about that the other day, where I went outside. We can do that now in Buffalo. We've reached the season where Jesus, like, is this even really wood? Let me just where you can go outside, and so like I went out. We're in downtown, and so I went out to the square and just sat for 10 minutes. Now, of course, my version of just sitting and like unplugging in between is I take a picture and make a fucking LinkedIn post while I'm
Yeah.
doing it. I'm
That's your
almost
recharge
unplugged.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, oh, did I just have a thought? What a good idea! I should put this out. So it was good, but there's like, yeah, if I'm putting a proposal together, right, or if you're doing all those like the kind of tasky tasks, the admin
Hmm.
stuff, the
Yep.
bookkeeping stuff, which thankfully that's one of the things I don't deal with anymore in life, being part of a team. But I've done the, hey, you're doing all of it, and then jump into, let's create brand strategy, right? Like, let's do a brainstorming exercise. It's just like, like, no,
Yes.
you gotta like,
I will say, and this
mhm,
this is not a plug for Renown,
yeah.
but I will say that outsourcing marketing has helped because I know it's important. I know it needs a lot of time and attention. It needs that creativity. And I was getting so pulled in so many directions. It wasn't getting the attention it deserved.
Hmm.
And it was like, to me, it's worth the cost to have the professionals do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I would argue that if there's something as a solopreneur or a small business owner that you can outsource effectively, just to like the peace of mind to not have to be like, oh crap, did I post on LinkedIn today? And what's my strategy? And when should I do my next newsletter? And like just taking that peace of mind for
Hmm.
me was huge.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think
So,
that's, and yes, not just marketing, right? I mean, like
but
anything, any
right,
piece
accounting,
that
bookkeeping,
you're in position to
yeah,
give to someone else, especially if it's not like, I mean, it might be critical. Most things are, otherwise we're not screwing around with them at all in business, right? If they're not actually pretty critical at some points, unless we're trying to avoid something where, we're probably dealing with something important. And so is accounting, right? And for some people,
yep,
like if you're the creative and you've got a graphic design business or whatnot, yeah, you might want to get a bookkeeper, right? You might want to like get someone to like, because you're going to drive yourself insane and want to shoot yourself in the face if you spend like all night every night like in the
yeah,
books.
true,
So yeah, outsourcing definitely. When you're in position to do that, and of course there's the higher level, right? So even in marketing, right, there's agency like, hey, here's this entire structure, let's figure out the plan, what do we want to do? And then there's the more bottom up level, there's all the websites in the world, the Fivers and the Upworks and the those
yeah,
kinds of things where you can find someone who's already does and is good at and knows the ins and outs of this thing you've got to get handled.
yep.
So give it away, like give it away.
And
And
by giving it away, it doesn't mean that you absolve yourself of any
mm,
real role, because
mm-hmm.
I'm still like, I still know what you guys are doing, and you
Yes.
still run things by me, and I still have my like my name and my hands on it,
Mm-hmm.
but someone else is owning it.
Yeah.
And that's the big difference
Yeah.
is
Someone's
I don't
owning it.
own
They're
the project.
executing on it.
Yeah.
You gotta know enough about it to double check it at the end, right?
Yes.
You've still got to inspect to some degree, like, okay, so this is what's happening. Okay. Great. Let's do that then, and marketing, that's different a little than, if you're in some kind of deep accounting or something, because if you don't know accounting or what the book should look like, then you can look at it all the fuck you want and you're not going to
Yeah.
be able to judge, which is unfortunate because that's where some business owners get burned, right? I mean, you have
Oh, yeah.
people looking in the numbers and they have access to your accounts and you don't know enough to be able to mitigate the damage. But besides marketing and accounting, there's a lot of stuff, right? There's sales training, there's
Yeah.
just whatever you can take off your
You
plate.
can anything you can automate too. Like every
Yeah.
time a client asks for a certain piece of information, or anytime I have to send out an invoice or a proposal, I'm really trying not to reinvent the wheel. Like I'm really trying to be like, okay, what's my template for this? And
Yeah.
like just like automating things or making things more streamlined.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even content, when I first got started, it was like, oh, what would you like me to train you on? Okay, let me go create content from scratch. And
Yeah.
it would take weeks. And now I've got like a little library or a repertoire of content. And now it's like, it's easier for me to lift and shift this and add in elements that you'd like
Mm-hmm.
than for me to start something from nothing.
Yeah.
So maybe once or twice a year I'll add some brand new content to my repertoire, but it's not like an ad hoc thing every time a client calls I'm creating something new, because that
Yeah.
is driving me nuts.
Right. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Especially if
and
it's
then
not some giant project, right? If it's a
right,
fairly small thing, but the lift happens to be large,
yeah,
it doesn't mean you turn it down because it's on you that you don't have the
yeah.
content for it and you said yes. And so that you have to put all this work into this little thing and you like, God, I hope to God someone else asked for this
I know, I
presentation.
hope to God that someone else will use this presentation at some point in my life, and when you start using the presentations over and over, then you're like, okay, that was worth the 24 hours it took to create
Exactly.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I've
24
got
hours straight
yeah.
leading up to that presentation. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I did it sometimes. I don't know, I'm not going to lay that on you, but okay. And that's so anything else we can think of that it's a good answer, like not the ultimate answer, but automation, right? Outsourcing. But as
Yep.
far as like wearing all the different hats and overcoming that for growth's sake, any other cool tips we can think of that you've learned kind of over the years that you've maybe built
Okay,
in?
yeah, good idea. The other one I would say is, this might not apply to everybody, but I came into a business that had been around for 20 years, and you don't really want to break down or knock down the fence until you know why the fence was built.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this component of like what helped us be successful, what got us to where we are from 98 to 2018 was great. And it was like, rubbing elbows and pounding the pavement, knocking on doors.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily the same formula that's going to make us successful now and for the next 20 years.
Right.
So like respecting and honoring what was done and how the business did grow through word of mouth and referrals and friendships and partnerships, and then realizing, is that enough to carry us? Because I think sometimes we get so stuck in our ways and we're like, well, we've never had to market before, we've never had to advertise, we've never had to do these things, and we've never had to have a really fancy website. And it's like, maybe that got us, maybe that formula was okay, like I said, for 20 years ago, but that was a hard place for me to be in, to sort of decipher being sort of new, but knowing, well, some of these things we have to start to tweak if we want to make it
Yeah.
in the future. And it doesn't mean we throw everything out. You're not throwing the baby out with bathwater, but what stays, what goes, and what do we continue to tweak? Grow your business.
No, I think that's also a valuable lesson for, which is totally outside of what we're talking about right now, but because I see it, whether it's marketing directors or, like when you're coming new into a company, especially at a position of power, right? If you've got some kind of leverage where technically you maybe could just start like fucking bulldozing stuff and be like, well, based on what I know, that's stupid and that's stupid and that's stupid, and here's the way. And yes, but besides the human element, where people around you who have actually invested themselves in some of those things, and so take it personally because that's what we do, right? Besides that element, it's like, well, no, some of it probably has more value. It's definitely worth exploring whether it has more value than you think it does at first glance, right? Like, so getting respect at least looks like figuring out why this has been happening. And if there's an answer to the why, besides this is how we've always done it, if there's an answer, like,
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
As long as there's a legitimate,
make the logo bigger and shut up. Like if there's an answer besides that one, then like listen to that. And then figure out ways to create an additive process where it's like, all right, well, if we added this, just imagine, right? Like if we added this, then we'd be having that success we've always had here, maybe more, because now we're doing this as well. And because now when you're out rubbing elbows, right? When you're out hitting networking meetings and, which is like all we can do now, which is the ironic thing of that thing, because I was in a meeting the other day, they wanted an in-person. And so we came in with our masks and one person does fist bumps, the other person does elbows. And I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Like, we're literally out here rubbing elbows.
The toe tap thing.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't want any piece of that or anything else. Like, let's stick to like the fist bump, right? We had that. We know what that is. But if you're out there doing the networking, then like, oh, web presence is helpful to that. Right. And obviously, and we've had these exact conversations where it's just like, all right, how do you want to leverage LinkedIn or video marketing, whatever it is? Well, if you're still doing a local, some like regional model that's still driven largely by developing relationships, and if you're in a town like we're in, which even if you wanted to do it some other way, you ain't doing it some other way, because that's how people are still doing business here, is like they want you to show up to stuff and mingle with all the insurance salesmen and all the non-decision maker, and like work your way through that thing. I'm like, cool. Well, what if you showed up and people already knew you, right? Like there's the additive. It's not like, you know what? Let's improve your website and start running Google ads. And then boom, like that's going to like, no, that's not part of the mix. We want to develop something that's like, you have a bigger presence. And so when you walk into a room, people actually either recognize you or they kind of recognize you. And if they start following, you're providing something of value. And so it lubricates those interactions.
It's amplifying your traditional methods.
Yes.
Which I think is important. And I agree. I think some of the traditional should stay. And, I love the fact, I think it's cool to say, we never really had a marketing budget. We never had to spend money on advertising or marketing because it was such word of mouth. So that says a lot about our reputation and what we did for our clients if we were able to grow the business for 20 years without that. But I knew full well now expanding into a new market and with, just social media wasn't around 20 years ago. So of course you weren't doing it. Right. Like some of these things we've got to embrace because the business world looks different now and people are making purchasing decisions differently. And you sort of got to be where your competition is too. So I think I would say the moral of the story is to be open-minded and to not get so sort of clouded in your judgment that you rest on your laurels and you're like, well, we've been so successful doing it this way for so many years. All we need is referrals to keep us going. And
Yeah.
it's like, hey, if all we ever needed were referrals, that's great. But wouldn't it be nice if we had some inbound, leads? Or
Right.
wouldn't it be nice if, we got some new business? And that was what was really cool about 2020 is I ended up looking through one of my fancy spreadsheets and I sent it to my dad and I was like, we had something like 7 or 8 new clients in 2020. And if you had told me that 2 years ago when I started, that during a global pandemic, you would get new business,
Mm-hmm.
I would have told you were nuts.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I'm talking about is like, be open-minded, try some new things, iterate if it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
Not always going to work right out of the gates. But you gotta continue to sort of innovate
Yeah.
and grow.
Yes. Yeah. Without getting into the cliche, you're either growing or you're dying,
Oh no.
which I think
But
can be
here's
true.
what I hear sometimes is like, some of these business owners and stuff, regardless of their age, they'll be like, well, I'm not on social media. Doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, what are your clients doing? What is
Yeah.
your potential customer doing? So meet them where they are. It doesn't matter if you think it's stupid. If you don't like emails and newsletters, that's great. But if that's been a proven way to get eyeballs on you and your brand, then you
Mm-hmm.
do it. So it's like
Right.
kind of get out of your own way and listen to the experts.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a
Correct.
plug-in for
Yeah.
you, Paul.
Excellent. I appreciate that. And
I
now
don't
this, a
do
word from
email.
renowned creative.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And yeah, and actually that message of like, yeah, I mean, marketing wise, you have to be where your customers are. That's why all those activities used to work.
Right.
Right. So the activities you've been doing work because you meet people where they're at. You like who the fuck you're rubbing elbows with. Like you're in some environments that's been constructed
Right.
for these folks to be at, like trade shows being the best example, right?
Yes.
Trade shows exist so that people can look at new stuff, drink at the end of the nights, rub elbows, pitch each other, like other uninterested people who were trying there to pitch and not be pitched to, right? But
Yeah.
like there's a structure for that. And
E and
like,
BC. Yeah.
yes, yeah. And if I mean, obviously in 2020 that was less of a thing, and then they became digital and people came up with all sorts of goofy versions of things. But in the future, assuming some version of that returns, there's still the supplementing, right? There's
Yes.
still like, okay, like we're not going to roll in and say, hey, fuck a trade show. Like all trade shows are dead, the classic marketer thing. Everything's dead. Everything's dead. It's not what we're wanting to
Direct
push.
mail is dead.
Exactly.
Not, by the way.
Websites are dead. Oh wait, shit. We sell websites. Websites are so alive right now. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But you come in and like, okay, well, maybe you have the same spend on the trade show, or maybe you get tickets. And maybe instead of a table, like doing the thing where you stand there and bribe people to put their list, their name and information on a list with a bad email or whatever it is that they're putting down, so
Sure.
they can get your little tchotchke, like whatever that thing is. Maybe you set it up slightly differently. You do attend, and then you create your own event the day before, right? And then like invite all your key prospects into some event where you're actually controlling the conversation, you're delivering value, you're doing that kind of a thing. And therefore the next day at the actual show, when everyone's scrambling around doing their insanity, like you're not out there looking for prospects anymore. Like you're reinforcing some conversations, you're just doing whatever there is to do. Hell, maybe you go and take a nap during half of it, because like, wow, those things can be intense / boring.
The night before. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you just went out, that event went so well that you just went out and crushed the town. Who knows? But it's like that. It's that like, well, what works about it? What actually works about it? It's not the feature, it's the benefit, right? Like what kind of value does this provide us directly? And how can we take that and replicate that and build on it, versus trying to either replicate or build on like the thing itself, or replace the thing itself. Well, that's old, and so let's not do it. Like, no, that's insane. Some stuff that worked 25 years ago still works, like still do it. But like you said, it's about being where your people are. And so whatever the format that takes, whether it's in a room, in a trade show, online, in a social media group, SMS, right? Text messaging. I mean, that's the newest,
Yeah.
most annoying form. Like whatever that is, you want to get in front of them. So we might have hit a
And they
couple.
do, yeah, they do complement each other. So like one
Yeah.
example would be we still get the referrals, but now it looks different because now someone who went through our program 10 years ago works for a new company. Maybe they don't have they don't have my father's email address.
Mm-hmm.
So they've lost contact. We haven't been actively managing them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they go to our website. Now they have a way to contact us through, that intake form or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Contact us. So we're hearing a lot from people that maybe would have been like, oh, I can't remember that guy's name,
Yeah.
but I
Let me
really
flip
want to
through
bring
my
him in here.
Rolodex.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, so we're seeing some of that. We're seeing we're seeing repeat business, but in different ways.
Yeah. Right.
And I wonder what would have happened if they couldn't have found us, and then now it's like, okay, let's get them into our CRM and let's like make sure we're reaching out to them through the email newsletter and
Mm-hmm.
let's stay front and center. And I think that's actually helped open up a lot of doors, and it's helped fill up our little roster for our boot camp.
Yeah. 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 It's
We were top of mind,
fun. Yeah. Fundamentals, just using the new
Yeah.
things that we have available at ourselves. And referrals is a great point there because, and when we do presentations on brand strategy and stuff like that. And like the point of, I mean, even the whole inbound thing and things being a flywheel versus a funnel is like, the customers don't just drop out and like that's the end
No.
product, right? So you want to take care of your people, really implement customer success so that you're actually using, I mean, it's new tools in some cases, but the question is, how do we get more referrals, right? It's not that we've always gotten referrals and so like we don't need technology. It's like, well, fuck, like let's get more referrals.
Let's get more.
Right. Let it make sure that they can find us if it's from way back when, or we're top of mind, not only for the people directly. And I think social media is a good example of this. I saw someone say it on LinkedIn the other day where it's like, listen, if it's not about direct lead gen with your posts on LinkedIn, like it's not about like, I hope I'm going to craft this post so well that someone's going to like message me immediately and be like, oh my God, you just spoke to my heart and like, I need to pay you money right now. But it's top of mind, it's reinforcement, and not only for the people that are reading, it's top of mind so that if they talk to someone else and someone describes a problem that you've been talking about solving in their feed, you're top of mind for the referrer, right? And you're top of mind so that your customers, like we're creating content for them, and there's prospects and customers in an email list, on a newsletter list. And so like the customers get a certain kind of content that helps incentivize and promotes them sharing you and them advocating for you. Like it's really about like, no, how do we get more referrals? Because there's no better way. There's no better lead than a referral.
It's the warmest possible lead you're going to get.
It's the best possible. Yeah, that trust thing is there already. Like if they've had no contact and they couldn't find you, it still worked. So when someone refers you and then they go and look at your website, they go check out your LinkedIn profile and the company page, and everything at the very least looks legit. And then, especially that if it has value and you have messaging that then is pointing right at what they're dealing with, no, it's like the literal no-brainer, which is a terrible phrase because it's not a real thing and it's so hard to reach. But that's what we're going for, right? It's like, it's not, forget referrals, we're going to get people cold from the internet. That is a thing that's in your business, in some businesses, way less. This is not e-commerce, right? We're not selling fucking widgets on impulse buys and then we're going to retarget the shit out of people and just blast them with ads.
I call those like the white unicorns or the purple squirrels. It literally has happened once in 3.5 years.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I'll take it for sure, but I'm not holding my breath waiting for those.
Yeah. And you don't want to build a strategy around it and like wait for that to be what's like the lifeblood of the business. We want to find how to get more referrals. And then, because the answer to that probably also helps get you some more inbound and makes it more likely you get some cold if they find their way to you. Right. So, the referrals point is big. So is there one thing or what's one thing that's you've had learned, actually let me put it, that you've been taught, right, that you've been shown or someone said regarding growing your business that turns out was totally false, at least in your particular situation, right? Nothing is true or false all the time. But in
Yep.
your situation, what's one thing that someone said, or maybe said many times, or you just took as truth at one point that now you realize, oh, that's fucking totally off?
I think there's two, but I'll
Okay.
start with the first one. Was I kind of went through this like business coaching thing 2 years ago, because
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, I'm eventually gonna have this business. I need to kind of get up to speed. How does this work? What should I be doing? I'm just trying to educate myself. And the
Mhm.
woman was very intense, and she was very much like my way or the highway. So she was basically like, if you're going to be a woman-owned business and you're within this size, this is how you have to grow it. And it was like a cookie cutter formula, and it,
Mhm.
it had to be, first you do this, then you do this, then you do this. And there was no navigating outside of it. There was no, well, what if I don't want to use this platform and I want to use some? So I would say to anybody, there isn't one way to do anything. And while she had created a very successful business and made a lot of money and stuff, that worked for her at that time.
Yeah.
But everyone's business is slightly different. And, I felt really weird about having kind of like it was like an evergreen webinar that would
Mhm.
be out living on social media, and somebody would watch it for free. And then you do the whole hard pitch, loop them in with the sales
Strategy
call.
session. Yeah.
And it's like, I never want to be that kind of person. And I'm sure it works for a lot of people and a lot of
Yeah.
businesses, but that's not me. That's not my values. And it's not like the kind of brand image I want to put out there.
Mhm.
So thankfully, I didn't listen to everything she said. There were some good things, good pointers in there
Mhm.
that I embraced. And then the second thing I would say is, don't fall into the trap that to scale and grow your business, you have to staff up.
Mm.
And maybe this was a hard lesson for some people in 2020, but I often see that people get so excited. They've got a lot of customers now, they've got bigger volume, they've got more work coming in. So they just start hiring people.
Mhm.
And that can be very dangerous and very scary. So if it's not like really strategized, and you don't know exactly what these people are doing and how it's going to meet your business needs, start slow, like one or two hires, see how it goes. Go
Mhm.
through like a year with a small team. It really scares me when businesses like ramp up super fast and hire hundreds of people, and then something like 2020 happens.
Yeah.
So, and that's not me trying to be negative. It's be strategic with your hires and make sure you actually need bodies before you just hire a bunch of people. Because
Yeah.
sometimes systems, processes, and automation can help grow your business without hiring a bunch of folks.
Many times. Many
Yeah,
times. Yeah.
many
Yeah.
times.
Okay. Yeah, no, those are both great. And yeah, I've seen so many of those, like funnel courses, and here's exactly what you should do.
Oh,
Here's the formula, which is the instant, immediate,
oh
like,
yeah.
that if they're calling something a formula or something, it's like, oh
Oh yeah.
shit, here
And
we
when it's
go.
so prescriptive, it's like, why does it have to be like, it's
Yes.
so scary. It's like, why,
Yeah.
what is this, a cult?
And
Like,
then
why?
shockingly, they have, affiliate deals with all the platforms you have to use, right? And like, hey, it just so happens they're a ClickFunnels partner, and they're this partner, and
Oh
they're
yeah.
that partner. And it's like, and the other sign is, if the price ends in a 7, it's probably bullshit. That's my new rule. If it's one of
Mm,
those if it's online marketing and the price ends in a 7, then it's probably
okay.
some of the most retread bullshit information you've ever seen, presented as like dogma from like up on high. And and maybe the person did make some, in your case, hopefully, like, yeah, that worked for them. Many cases that's not even true. Like, many cases, how those folks are
You're
trying to
not
make
doing
money is by doing this course. It's like
Yeah.
the sell it,
And,
sell it,
and
sell
it's like they were trying to teach us to do everything ourselves. Like, this is how you do SEO, Google ads, and this is how you like build your website with GoDaddy. And this is how, I'm like, you're
it.
overwhelming the crap out of me right now.
Yeah.
So like, if you can outsource some of that stuff, if you have a little bit of a budget to do it, do it, you
Yeah,
know?
no, and fun fact: if you learn something about SEO, you learn that you shouldn't build your website on GoDaddy. But
Totally.
just those things are going to butt up to
Yeah.
each other. But you
Yep.
present the information knowing that no one's going to actually implement all of it, right? No one's going to actually do that formula, which gets you off the hook for your shit working that you're selling. because like, well, hey, listen, if you didn't do everything the exact way that I said, then I can't be held to account for you getting no results. And then if someone actually did everything that was laid out, they would find inherently, oh, this is insane. This doesn't make sense. This breaks down at many different points. So either way, the game plan is not, people are going to be successful out of this. Like, you need enough people to be successful enough to make some non-fake testimonials for your pitch and your website, and then you move on. But
well, I also think it's dangerous when you say there's like a one size fits all approach.
Yeah.
There's no way that that's legitimate. So
now, I know from my ordering clothes online that one size does not fucking fit all. Thank you very much. All right. So,
yes.
Okay, so the last thing that we do in the show is a non-question. It just comes up to you to what takeaway, what message, what do you want to leave our viewers and listeners with right after you tell them where they can find you and your company?
Okay. So we are all over LinkedIn. You can find me personally, Lindsey Zajac, personal profile. You can find our company, Ahern Murphy and Associates company page. We are on Facebook and Instagram, not as robust as LinkedIn, but we are there. Our website is www.ahernmurphy.com. And I think I will just leave the viewers with, we are launching a virtual boot camp in April, and we're really, really excited. We're taking a 20-year leadership program. We're condensing it. We're making it accessible to all types of people from the comfort of their own homes and offices. And we're really excited about it because usually it was in person and you had to be in Syracuse. And we've got 10 people so far. We're thinking that number is going to grow, but we're excited about this offering, and it's very competitively priced. So I hope if you're interested, you will look us up.
Yeah. Nice. Nicely done. And I will point out, again, I've already given my disclaimer here, so this is not supposed to be some kind of clean seeming thing. But one of the things that people want to check out is there will be more of these, right? So if by the chance that someone's watching or listening to this and it's beyond a few weeks from now when that thing launches, there will be one in the fall. There will be regular opportunities for leadership developments, and all the more reason to check out the website and sign up for the newsletter.
Definitely. Yes. We've already had some people say, the spring's not good for me. Will there be one in the fall? And I said, absolutely. So,
yep. Yes. And we'll have those dates clear before this one starts. So option 2 coming right up.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate the time as always, Lindsey. Hopefully the beer and the conversation was a pleasant break in your intense and head cold kind of week. And I know they don't come in 1-packs, so I know that you've got a few more to ease through the week with. So enjoy that. Yeah. Thanks for the time, and appreciate you having you on.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Paul. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, me too. Brews BizDev is hosted by Paul Greiner and produced by Renown Creative. Check us out at renownCreative.com. Are you fucking kidding me?